your initial thoughts when first playing The Legend of Zelda?
I feel like when I first played it, it was more of like an exposure kind of thing. Like, you know, I really had no idea what video games were at the time, so it was kind of like my first video game-esque experience. But I mean, it was a good time, you know, just starting out in video games. I guess it was a good starter.
I thought it was cool. I like the waterfalls.
This is really old.
Pretty fun, and it was like the first time I played like video game stuff, because I wasn't like ever huge into video games until my brother like introduced them to me, and then I watched him play them first, and then I would play them.
How does the old style of the original Legend of Zelda hold up to the modern day games?
Old to modern, it's always going to be like a big jump between like graphics and performance, but you know, in the sense of like maybe like having fun with friends or something like that, I feel like the modern games really don't touch on like a buddy experience.
It's a bit more pixely.
It's old.
I feel like the styles they're crazy different, but in its own way, because you almost can't compare them because they're so different. But I feel like it's still a good way, or it's still a good style because it's playable and it's fun and you understand what's happening. And in the newer ones, it's really artistic and different. Anyways.
Which game would you prefer between the original Legend of Zelda and Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link?
Legend of Zelda. Just because I like the flat surfaces.
The first one seems more fun, because the second one seems a little confusing.
You know, like that really doesn't make sense in like a Zelda kind of sense. I know it comes back in like Ocarina of Time where you have to like find like the skull hammer and you gotta like clear out rocks, but it really like just having like no other way to get past a rock and like a path, it doesn't make sense. So I'm gonna have to go with the older Zelda.
Definitely the original. Adventure of Link, it's kind of bad. Like the swap between the overview and the side scroll is kind of terrible in my opinion. Yeah, so I prefer the original.
Do you like the old exploration of the original Zelda titles on the NES?
Yes.
They're okay, just not that attention grabbing.
Having no sense of what you're supposed to be doing is kind of a little overkill. Could have programmed kind of like, you know, like a guide just with like the map, like blocking off certain areas, or like having like specific areas like no enemies, and then like the ones where you're supposed to be in do have enemies. That could have been like a better approach than just like sending gamers into like a map that just has like 4 openings on each side where you can just go wherever and you really have no idea where you're supposed to go.
Better to have a direction on where to go. With exploration, you're just kind of aimlessly wandering. What do I do? What am I supposed to do? And with more of a direction, you like can see where you want to go and what you're supposed to do.
Zelda 2 is a very different game from the original Legend of Zelda. Do you think it is a worthy sequel to the original?
Yep. As a sequel, it's not very good. It doesn't really seem worthy because the way that they swapped from just the overview to the side scrolling as well was a really bad idea, and it's just not as good.
Not really, no. I didn't. This is weird.
It's a really good, just kind of like expansion. Like it's not. I realize it doesn't really go with like the plot of like the rest of the entire franchise, but it does kind of like, you know, it adds like a filler. It's kind of like a filler kind of side story is what I like to think of it as. Like an objective, like, you know, like the first temple, it's like, oh, go here and go find something, and then you go there and then it gives you all the temple objectives. I feel like that's a better way to approach it.
The Legend of Zelda is a classic game that withstands the test of time, while its sequel, The Legend of Zelda: The Adventure of Link, does not own up to its initial style.
While still being an okay game on its own, it does not fit the mantle of the Legend of Zelda series or any of its sequels.